When did you realize that you wanted to become an educator?
I knew that I wanted to be a teacher since the fourth grade, believe it or not. I remember my mom keeping this getting to know you activity sheet that we all do on the first day of school. And for the question, who you want to be when you grow up, I wrote that I wanted to be a teacher. I've always been around education and students due to my mom being an educator, so I've always felt that this is my purpose, even from my young age.
Told that I would be a good teacher when I was in high school, and I didn't listen. It was in one ear and out the other. It wasn't until my junior year of my undergraduate program that I realized that I wanted to get an education.
My first memory of becoming an educator was in third grade. We had career day, and you would say what you wanted to be when you grew up. Well, I come from a long line of teachers, so my destiny, I guess you could say, was pretty well laid out for me. My mother was a middle school teacher in Detroit at the time, so being a teacher was easy for me.
It started off for me as sophomore year of high school when I worked as a teaching assistant at this program called Math Corps. And so I was pretty much assigned 2 students to look after and teach them math. And the experience alone made me realize how important it was to be a representation for young black males, especially in the classroom, because that's something that they don't see that often. And over time, you begin to realize that you're more than just like someone who's teaching them.
Did race play a role in your decision to pursue a career in education?
Race played a major role into me becoming a teacher because in 10th grade, I transferred to a predominantly all-white school. I noticed that there was no African-American teachers, and at times I felt I needed that safe space to talk to someone African-American outside of just one of the counselors who wasn't African-American, just to get my perspective of how I was feeling being at an all-white school.
This did not impact my decision in switching my major back to education, but it's definitely a big component in education. I definitely connect with teachers of color more than not.
Well, for me, I had more so African-American female teachers growing up, but I rarely had any African-American male teachers. So, like I said before, having like that representation of African-American men in the classroom just shows them that, there's more that they can do with their lives.
How did Future Teachers of Color start?
Prior to the initial start, I was doing some events in the College of Education that did not have the turnout that I was expecting. So through talks with KPS Assistant Superintendent Sheila Dorsey-Smith, I then began to brainstorm the idea of FTC and what it should look like, and that I would target specifically the students of color who were going into education. Once this happened, I then discussed starting FTC with the now founders, and we are now going on our second year of having FTC on Western's campus.
What were your initial thoughts when you heard about FTC?
I found out about FTC through an email that Will, who is our president, he sent to students of color within the education program. And I had already had classes with Will prior. So when he sent it, I'm like this is official. Like, I'm totally doing this. And I was really excited.
I've always known about it because Will and I talked about how he could help me recruit. He saw working in human resources in Kalamazoo Public Schools, it was very difficult to get minority teachers. And he saw firsthand that there were none to be had we would go and talk to universities around the state and also in Ohio, Indiana, and there just weren't a lot of minorities. So his charge was to help us to recruit more minorities in KPS through his organizations or basically his connections at Western.
I was taken back because to see young brothers and sisters organizing and call it trying to rally the troops and get folks to understand that this field, this profession is for real.
Why was it important to create FTC?
As students of color at a PWI, there is a different experience that our white professors and classmates just do not understand. And to build community and a place where we can all learn together, so there's a level playing field and we're not at a disadvantage compared to our classmates, is something that is really beneficial.
There are a lot of things that can't be taught in classes due to the barrier of our own race and experiences. And I felt that there was a need to create a space where we are able to discuss topics and get insight from seasoned educators within our local school district.
I wanted to check out FTC because I wanted a bigger support system. Like I mentioned before, I had my advisors from Trio, but my advisors aren't students. So I wanted to be able to connect with more students who I knew were going through the same things as me, and we could just be there for each other and encourage each other. So
how would an organization like FTC benefit other universities?
What you see at Western is the same across this country. Western is not unique. The lack of color in education is at a crisis point right now. So every university could use exactly what's happening with FTC and also Trio to get people interested in becoming teachers and to support them.
Well, it'll help them the same way that it helped us. Like I said, talking about networking and creating like a safe space for people to open up, and talk about the things that they go through being a minority in the education field.
If I would have stepped on Saginaw Valley State's campus in 1985 and y'all were there, hands down, I mean, come on, man. As a young black male, you gravitate toward, what appears to be, relevant to you, comfortable for you, what you know, right? So if I would have seen brothers and sisters, sitting around in the student union, sharing some information about becoming a teacher, I would have gravitated toward that to put an ear on it, right?
What are your hopes for FTC?
Hopefully, our impact now can influence people 5 years down the line to consider education that are people of color.
We want to create opportunities related to career preparation, academic success, mentorship, and exposing them early on through community service outreach and strengthening networking skills. Our goal is to create a sense of community and family among future teachers of color.
If you can persevere and get through the program, once you get through, you have proven to yourself that you do have it in you to get through.
I think if you have a heart for teaching, once you engage with a couple of children, the decision is made because your heart will drive you from that point.
If not you, then who? This is something that I say to myself, but I also say it a lot over the years because time after time, we wait for someone else to do things, but if we simply did it ourselves, then you will be a part of the change. So do not let the current state deter you from the field because you never know your role and impact in driving the change that we want to see in education.